show after the show where we get to continue conversations, especially about locals doing amazing things. We are back with Max Morel, who is sharing your family's mission to change lives one at a time. So we got to hear a little bit about it live on the show today, but I want to take a deep dive into your initiative for Barrio La Maria. Barrio La Maria.
Barrio La Maria.
There we go, Barrio La Maria. And how you really got connected and compelled to start doing this with your family to change the lives for families of others.
So a deep dive is a deep dive then. So essentially, we'll start from the very beginning if you like.
Yeah.
With my family, I mean, we grew up dirt poor, like completely poor. I spent 2 years without my parents at a very young age when my parents came from Dominican Republic to the United States to set up life for us. It's a weird transition, especially when you're getting a green card or getting your paperwork. It takes a very, very long time. For us, it unfortunately took 2 years. So that was 2 years without my parents. It forced me to grow up very, very quickly. When we moved to New York, Jana, it was one of those where it was like the size of this room, like 700 square feet, if not less.
For your whole family?
For my whole family. I'm one of five. So we have 5 kids and then 2 adults, and we were just crammed in there. But every Christmas, I recall my mom going to like the Catholic church, and it was, getting toys from us and different things. And back then, even till now, I'm like, I don't want anything. They worked so hard to provide for us back then that I was just like, I don't want anything at all. And seeing my parents go from nothing to something, and then them finally being able to retire recently. And we're talking about a guy that worked landscaping most of his life. And then my mother, she worked at a Taco Bell. And then from Taco Bell, she worked as a custodian at a school. So their entire lives, blue collar, their English was horrible. But they got by. And they worked very, very hard to get to where they're at now. Recently, they retired. But every year what they would do is that they'll come to me and my brothers, and it was one of those where it's like, hey, you have old clothes, you don't need them anymore, give them to us. And they would put together a box, and that box, they'll put it in a shipping container, and off to Dominican Republic it went. We never saw the clothes or anything like that, but it was to serve the community where they came from. And what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of communities out there that are literally unreached. You can't get into these communities because of violence, or you got churches in there which unfortunately are fairly corrupt. So when you have people that go in and help their own, it makes a world of a difference. So when I first started traveling, every trip that I had or that I've made, it was one of those where it's like, all right, how can I give back? Doesn't matter how small it was, like it was just one of those, like, how can I give back? I remember my first trip to Colombia, there was the turmoil in Venezuela, like it just bled over into the city. And I remember there was a young girl, maybe 12, 13 years old, on a corner selling lollipops. Well, I gave her $4 essentially, which equated to 20 million pesos for them, which is significant. She started crying, and her brothers came to the taxi where I was in. I didn't buy any of the candy. She tried giving them all to me. It's like, I didn't want the candy.
Right.
It's just, I knew where they were coming from. I knew they weren't from there, but it's that hustle and bustle that, these people have to try to push forward.
Right.
When they have nothing and they have very little. And then we ended up going to Nagua in Dominican Republic. So we were just driving. We went, it was a group of us from work. We went there. We were having a great time, and we went from one town to another. And on the way back from, it was Puerto Plata, we passed a town called Nagua. And there was a few kids on the side of the road. Again, I'm Dominican by birth. And I can tell you many of stories of these kids, taking showers in the streets because it's raining or what have you. But you got these kids on the side of the road, and they were counting coins. I was just kind of like, wonder what they're doing. So I had some change left over from that trip. And I hate bringing money back, especially because the currency, the dollar value just goes so far in a lot of these foreign countries. Um, I I actually pulled over on the side of the road and I went to talk to them. I'm like, hey, here's a few bucks. They took off running, um, like completely just jotted
Sprinting.
down,
Yeah.
sprinting away from me. Like they wanted nothing to do with us. Here you have this strange SUV pulling off on the side of the road trying to give these kids money, which I completely understood.
Right.
They ended up turning into a neighborhood not far from there, and you had the elders that were pretty much sitting outside. I went over there, I introduced myself to them, I told them, where I was from, what I did for a living, and we hit it off in a conversation. And the money I was going to give to the kids, I gave it to the grandpas. They were sitting outside and talking.
Once you're able to connect with them and say, like, I'm not here to cause any harm.
And they told me essentially what's going on in a lot of these places, especially places like Nagua in the Dominican Republic, is these kids are getting kidnapped, they're getting trafficked, and they disappear. Obviously, there are stories out there that the news doesn't touch, or there are organizations that they don't go there. So that was that one. When we returned to Colombia, I had some friends that reached out, and they're like, hey, we did this for this event, if you would like to donate. And I was like, we're coming back. We're coming back. We're going to do a vacation there. We had excursions planned out essentially for the week. My day, it was supposed to be ATVs. So my brothers and I had money set aside for ATVs. Instead of doing that, we already brought the toys over. So we were going to donate toys. That was a plan. It was never a plan to donate food. So we took the money from the ATVs. It was $150 a piece between the three of us. So my brother pitched in his 150. I pitched in my 150, and then my other brother pitched in his 150. And then we got with the community here, where I just literally I posted it on my Instagram. I had my neighbors, had colleagues that donated to this, and then I had family members that was like, hey, here's some money, go do what you do. We ended up raising around like $600 on top of with what we put in, and then coming out of pocket maybe another $400, which there total we spent maybe $1,500, but $1,500 to be able to feed 40 families was like mind-boggling. The cost of living there compared to here there's a huge difference. When we were there and we were doing the donations, the part that broke me the most was we had kids that would tell kids, hey, we just got toys. So initially we had a list of 40 families with their kids, but kids talk. And as they talk,
I'm like backing up because I feel like I know where this is going, and I was told not to cry specifically.
As they talk, we ended up having close to 100 kids show up, and having to turn away that amount of kids, it was just it was heartbreaking. But where we were at, if you saw the video,
Can we actually roll the video?
that home. The home that hosted us was nice compared to the homes that are like further down the road, like you're talking about. It's I don't even know how to describe it.
Because I do actually want you to try to describe it, because the homes here, I think we have to agree that like it's a challenging term, because these are homes made of pallets, things that you would ship on. Yeah. You'll see some of the photos here in a second, and my heart breaks for you because I'm just looking at this video, and like I can't imagine people continuing to line up and not having what you needed. So this continuing to grow.
The lady that was there a few moments ago, she actually had cancer, and like she came up there with her child, and like she was frail, like super frail. So there's this one young lady that she's not in the video, but we made sure that we reserved some food for her because she was working.
Right.
But her home, it's pallets. They'll put curtains up behind the pallets. They'll, they may paint the pallets. Her home was green, like a bright green, but it was just pallets.
Yeah.
You can see through it. You can move the curtains. You know, they can open up the door and just walk on in, and it's just like tin on top of the pallets. There's another one with an older man. He has like one light bulb in his home, and his walls are just falling apart. But again, there's just pallets, and they put dirt in between to cement it in. But it's one of those where, Jana, it's such a tourist hub. The only thing they care about is the tourism. They forget about the people that live there, outside of there. So even as tourists, like, we'll show up there. We can have a great time. We can eat, a steak dinner for $6. Sure, no problem. But everyone else outside of there, they may go hungry that day. So that's why, like, we made sure that the kids had at least one hamburger that day, which was phenomenal for us to be able to do that. But it's heartbreaking when it's one of those where it's like your own community forgets you exist. Or you can't rely on a church in your community because that church will take everything and it just disappears. So when you have that outside help, that little extra push goes a long way, which is why long-term wise, I know my goal. My goal is eventually is to start something up where I can reach the unreached. That's the name that I want that I want to use. Right. It's reaching the unreached. Because there are a lot of places that churches can't get into. There are a lot of places that organizations don't get into at all. And it's not so much that they can't, it's that connection. Being able to connect with the right people in the right places, and being able to do that. I've been blessed, essentially, because I've been able to connect with the right people. I've been able to go in and make friends and, hey, how can we give back to this community? And to have a family that'd be willing to host us in an area where tourists are not allowed at all was more than I can ask for.
And I love that you're just demonstrating here. Obviously, this QR code, you scan it right now with your phone. I know you have a phone in your hand. Lift it up, scan the QR code. Whatever you can donate is helpful. This is one of our own community members going out, making a difference. And I know that this has such a heartfelt connection for you, just demonstrating that, hey, if you wanted to, you can.
Absolutely.
And just taking that initiative. So everybody watching with River City Plus this morning, I'm sure your eyes welled up just like mine did. If you feel moved in your heart, please, please, please just scan that QR code, share it on your Facebook. Everyone has one of three things: time, talent, treasure. I always say this. So share one of those with Max and his brothers. We are reaching the unreachable one person at a time. So Max, thank you so much for sharing that story with us this morning on River City Plus. We really appreciate it. Okay, everybody, we're going to be back with you tomorrow morning for River City Live, highlighting locals one at a time.